Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Saba show. Now the NBA season is coming up pretty damn soon. In a couple of weeks or so. And we've got a few events that are going on around the NBA. We had media day a day or two ago. We've got training camp now. We've got preseason coming up. There's a lot of events going on. But today, I thought that I would break down some of the things that have been said by Nets players on NBA Media Day, and we'll just break them down a little bit, see what there is to say, if there's anything deeper about it, simple stuff. But if you have any thoughts about what I say in this video, make sure to let me know in the comments. I will respond to it, and like the video if you enjoy this type of video. We will have a lot more content coming up in the coming weeks regarding the NBA and the Nets. So let's just dive right in to today's video. Now there's a few things that I think were addressed, more common things, and then there were some outliers, but I think it's important to discuss all of them. First of all, we have the emphasis on buy-in and culture, and that's basically, it's pretty obvious, like around the league, Brooklyn has been known for this very good culture and identity. Especially in the last few seasons, like since 2018 probably. A lot of players have bought into the culture, a really strong culture, and we'll talk about that a little later. Also the emphasis on winning a chip and willing to play whatever role for the team. So that sort of is like a deeper, point of discussion from the buy-in and culture. It's a good culture, that drives you to win a chip. And that has been shown through a lot of what the players have said on Media Day. We also have emphasis on the roster being built. Now we know that it's a much more experienced roster this season. We've brought in Millsap, Aldridge, Mills, Johnson, the list goes on. But yeah, there's a lot of discussion around that. We also have a bit of praise for the younger guys on the team. Bit of a balance. A couple up and coming players. As well as, the draftees. There's a lot of people that they will be learning from. And then we also have the Kyrie situation, which that's obviously been a discussion in the media for weeks on end. Kyrie just can't escape the media. And yeah, this whole COVID vaccine thing has not helped. We also have a few outliers that we also will get to. But yeah, let's not waste any more time. So we start with buy-in and culture. First of all, we'll get to James Johnson. We have a couple quotes from him. Basically, he said, you can feel the vibing when he was referring to the Nets locker room. And I think that's a great start. Great start for the Nets. Obviously, there's been discussion in the past, especially when the big three were being made. What, was the chemistry going to work? Was there the right mix of players? Will there be clashes between Durant, Irving, and Harden? That hasn't been the case at the moment, and it looks like they're really enjoying, being a team. Paul Millsap said, his decision to come to Brooklyn was based on winning now, and he also said that it met every criteria that he was looking for. I think this is just, a testament to what the Nets have built in the last few seasons. I think there was that, that if you're a Nets fan, there was a Louis Scola quote. He played for the Nets about 5 years ago. He said once they start winning, they'll get everyone they want. And that's pretty much been the case. Durant, Harden, Irving, all these vets want to come to the team. And here's another example of that. Cam Thomas, I think this is a more individualized comment that he made. He said, I'm here to compete and find a role for myself. I'm not just gonna, lay down. And I think that's, a really good sign in terms of mentality for Cam. He's said in the past, I think he said in a couple interviews earlier on around the draft time, the summer league, he said he adopts the Mamba mentality, or a lot of people have seen that in him a little bit. And he's taken charge with some very clutch shots in the summer league. Look, he's not he's not going to back down, even with Durant, Irving, Harden on the team and a lot of experienced veterans. He's not intimidated by that. He's not intimidated by the challenge. I think this is a really good thing for the Nets to look forward to. And someone who doesn't have a nailed down role in this team yet is Sekou Doumbouya. And he said, my expectation is just trying to bring whatever I got defensively, trying to be the best defensive player I can be and help the team win. And look, I think this is just, another example of buy-in, because, he's not wanting to be, as much as it sounds stupid, successful as a player. He's willing to sacrifice development as a player, offensively possibly. He's probably got some versatility there. He's willing to sacrifice it just for the team to win. And that shows, how much these players are dedicated to winning a chip. They will, sacrifice being the man, more so opting to, play their role and take one for the team, basically. And now we'll go a little bit more in depth regarding the winning a chip factor, emphasis on winning a chip and willing to play whatever role for the team. We'll start with Paddy Mills. Honestly, love how he's at the team. It's so amazing to see an Australian on the team. But regardless, we'll just dive into his quote. He said, my conversation with Kevin Durant purely about basketball put me in a mindset of purpose for a championship and being a piece of the puzzle to try and bring a championship to Brooklyn. This is what Mills said about picking the Nets, and I think this shows two things. First thing is Kevin Durant, the fact that, he's able to convert players into, wanting to be at the team. I think he sort of wants to bring out the success in people, or the motivation to get success. Some players go for the money, but he's been able to bring players over that are driven by contributing. Basically, they want to be part of something special. And KD's, he found a junkie in Paddy Mills. I think that's what KD described him as. But yeah, I think that's just a testament to KD. And in terms of Paddy Mills, he is driven to win. Coming into the team, it's not for anything else. He said it in the quote. He wants to bring a championship to Brooklyn, and that is building on the buy-in. Players want to be involved in success. He also says to have the ability to want to learn is always key in big moments. Being able to have a big role on Australia gives me confidence to be a huge piece to this championship caliber team. A championship is what we're after here. It gets me going. Once again, very centralized on a championship. He's willing to play a role. He's not, willing to shy away either from the big moments. He's done it with Australia. He wants to do it with the Nets as well. And the fact, I think, something that's really telling about his character is he says he wants to learn. I think that's really valuable when you reach a certain age. I mean, any age, you should never stop learning. And I think that's really valuable as a basketball player. As an NBA player, wanting to improve constantly. And I think this will contribute greatly to the success of the team, and more so to, I think, the younger players who, may get a bit complacent, with what they're doing, their skill level. I think Paddy Mills will, with that attitude, instill a more positive mindset into the younger players that, there's the certain level isn't enough. We always want to be going for that step higher. James Johnson, he also said, 7-year, 8-year JJ may have been fuming, but 13-year JJ is so blessed to be here, and being a part of a championship culture is an amazing feeling. So number one, he's basically complimented the Nets organization by saying they're a championship culture. Obviously it hasn't happened yet, but they can see it. And I think that's really positive, especially, if they believe that they're going to win a championship, they're going to pour their heart out on the court. The fact, I think, just willing to accept his role, accepting the stage of his career that he's in. He probably won't get that much game time, but just the acceptance, that is the buy-in. Once again, we mentioned earlier the willingness to sacrifice in order for a championship. This is another prime example of that. We've got one quote about the roster. KD says the IQ is pretty high with this group, and that's pretty self-explanatory. A lot of experienced heads in this team. Millsap, Aldridge, as we said, Johnson, KD, Harden, and Irving alone are experienced, but then you've got all these guys on top that are going to contribute in their various ways. And the fact that they're possessing this IQ is not only going to help for the short-term success, but the long-term success as well, with mentoring the younger players as they, come to terms with, how an NBA team is run, the intensity, and, you know, a variety of other factors. You know what I'm talking about. Another thing that was emphasized on Media Day was the praise for the younger guys, and I think this has been a common trait ever since, you know, there's been this takeover of, you know, the big three and whatnot. There's been a lot of praise this offseason about Nick Claxton. I have seen some footage of him, you know, developing his jump shot. We'll start off with James Harden, what he said. He said that he reminds me of Clint Capella with more skill. We've built a great connection. You saw in a lot of alley-oops last year with James Harden and Nick Claxton. I mean, Clint Capella, he's basically a rim protector, essentially. He doesn't really have a jump shot on him. So I think that that skill element that James Harden is implying is basically, you know, an extension on that. A jump shot, you know, more offense, but, you know, the defense is still there. And I think the fact that he says that they've built a great connection is just really good. You don't want to, you know, you don't want a gap between the young and the old, because that could cause, you know, a few problems amongst the locker room. But I think this is a really positive sign. Cam Thomas on the big three said, just for me to be able to see these guys and eventually pick their brains about the game, it's great. And you know what? I agree with that. Very much so. I do believe it's great as well. As I said before, these rookies are going to, you know, learn so much about the game. They're going to improve at a rapid rate, rise to the top very quickly because they're learning from some of the best. And, you know, I think Cam Thomas pretty much sums it up, and it sort of builds on the idea of the, you know, learning the IQ of the game, the high IQ of the group, you know, all that stuff. I think that really comes to fruition through this quote. Blake Griffin returns the favor, and he says about Cam Thomas, you can see how hungry he is. It's a great intangible. And obviously we've seen this. We've seen glimpses through the Summer League. Hopefully it translates, you know, to the NBA. But I think it's just a testament to the hard work. Cam Thomas, his drive, his willingness to improve, I think is going to be really great, paired with, you know, these great minds that we've been talking about through the video time and time again. And just reverting back to Nick Claxton for one more moment, Sean Marks, even the GM, was able to pick this up about Nick Claxton. Talking about his role this season, his versatility and defense is the best on the team, bringing high energy, attacking the glass and defending. We are looking for him to take the next steps this season. And I think we saw, you know, a few little baby steps last season. There were hints of improvement. There were hints of a huge jump. At some point, it didn't happen. But, you know, hopefully this season's the season where he's playing a big role in the playoffs and just translating all these, you know, words of encouragement, all these words of praise into reality. He's clearly gotten the backing, you know, defensively, and, you know, offensively as well. As we mentioned with James Harden before, he's been able to pick that up too. And obviously, especially with all those feeds through alley-oops and, you know, Kevin Durant, Irving, and Harden, you know, bringing the defense toward them, Claxton will get a lot more free opportunities, especially to develop his jump shot with a lot of open looks. Let's not try to overshadow the video with some Kyrie slander, but there's been a lot of discussion about Kyrie and the vaccine and whether he'll get a play, the mandates, all that jazz. But we're just going to cover a couple quotes. Kyrie said himself, I'm not able to be present there today, but that doesn't mean I'm putting any limits on the future, on being with the team. Basically saying that he's not going to piss off from the team. He's not trying to isolate himself from not getting the vaccine. I think it's just one of his beliefs, but, you know, the NBA are clearly cracking down on it, so he's probably, I mean, I don't know what the workaround is. But a lot of players have mentioned that they aren't concerned about Kyrie Irving. Bruce Brown, Joe Harris, KD, they're all not stressed at all about Kyrie Irving and whether he'll play or not this season. So I think this just says a lot about, you know, the camaraderie, you know, sticking up for one another. You're not going to throw anyone under the bus. You're not going to say anything on their behalf. You're not going to spread fake news, you know, all that stuff. It's just, you know, it's his business. He can talk about it. If he doesn't want to talk about it, then shut up. It's as simple as that. And I think some other things that I'm just going to mention, I'm not going to really talk about him that often. Joe Harris said about Steve Nash that he's never too high, never too low. He connects with players 1 to 15, and it is a unique skill set to have. That is Joe Harris on Coach Nash. And yeah, I think this is This is really important. You don't want to, get your players caught up in success, thinking you're that good, and then you go on a really bad streak. And then when you're, down, you want to elevate your players and, get the best out of them. Even when they're down, when the morale's down, you want to, kick them back up. And yeah, the fact that he can do this with all 15 players on the roster, I think it'll do wonders for the Nets' performance this season. Joe also knows how shit he did in the playoffs, so he did say that his mum and sister beat him up pretty good, not physically, but he says, I know I can play better than I showed, and I think there's nothing much to that, except for the fact that Joe Harris will probably come back much bigger and better. Hopefully he does in the playoffs, because he's had a couple stinkers, let's face it. He's also remarked, a lot of memories thinking back of the pain. It's motivated myself. We have a hunger to come out and redeem ourselves. And I think this is just, Joe Harris has been in this situation before. Chip on his shoulder, not much to lose. He's been hungry for a second opportunity. He got it at Brooklyn, a few seasons back now. But he's no stranger to, the pressure, I think. He's had a lot of pressure within himself to perform, from the playoffs, just like he had a pressure to, make an NBA team. He felt like he could make the NBA. He made the NBA, and he was able to, achieve great things. It's just about taking the next step, just being able to recognize what you did wrong and improve on it. It's what we mentioned much earlier on with Paddy Mills. It's never too old to learn. Anyway, that was a bit of a colossal video. I hope you enjoyed this one. This is a little bit of a unique idea, but yeah, we've got a lot more NBA and Brooklyn Nets content coming up in the coming weeks. So make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you're well informed, and you can be notified of when new content comes out. But that's all for me. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.